Hi everyone, I'm Elise Padilla, the director of NAMI's STAR Center. Thank you for joining us as we explore peer support programs and talk to some awe-inspiring and empowering peer leaders in our communities who are going to share their stories of recovery, work in the community, and self-care tips. If you're new to the STAR Center, please check us out at peerstar.org, where you can learn more about us. What we want to do here is to support you to connect with the power of your own story, embrace leadership opportunities, and build communities where every person and family coping with mental health and substance use challenges has hope for a meaningful life. I look forward to sharing my story, the stories of others, and learning from each and every one of you through the STAR Center podcast titled Hear Me Now. Today, I am so excited to bring Marc Schmallen to talk with you all today and for him to share a little bit of his experience as the founder and creator of Choice Recovery Path. Marc comes from Colorado. He now lives in New Mexico, and he's working nationwide to bring Choice Recovery Path to individuals who are starting out in the process or looking for some really great tools to be able to help with their behavioral health recovery. Marc has some amazing insight, and I really value the information that he's able to give us on stepping out of your comfort zone. Sometimes stepping out of our comfort zone is as much as going to a new workout group. Marc enjoys yoga, and so starting in a new program like that can be difficult for us when we don't know how to step outside of our comfort zone. Another thing is, how do we start that new job or take on that new position or begin telling our story? How do we share our story with others, and how do we step outside of the comfort zone that we've known to grow as individuals, to grow as peers in the process, and to be able to share our story far and wide so that hopefully we can touch others and make a change within our communities. Marc, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk with you, to pick your brain a little bit, but more important, to give both of us the opportunity to share our stories and to talk about stepping out of your comfort zone, which for us as peers in the recovery movement, the work that we do, it can be uncomfortable in the beginning to start telling our story or to reach out to new people or to go to new organizations and share our information. I know for me, I deal with social anxiety, and it's probably the least favorite part of everything that I get to deal with because it makes me shut down and it makes me not want to share information that could be valuable and helpful to others. And having come across you and the work that you're doing and having worked with you and known you for these number of years, that was how we met, was you stepping out of your comfort zone to come and talk about something that really meant a lot to you. So today I want to hear your story. How did all of this come about? How are you so successful in doing what you're doing now? And who helped you along the way?
Thanks. Yeah, you were pivotal in this process. So where did we start? A little history of me. So I started an organization called Choice Recovery Path based on my own lived experience. This, let me be frank, this was not a well-formulated thought to begin with. I didn't intend on this turning into what it had.
Those are the most fun sometimes.
So initially I took my experience dealing with the issues I'd had in my life through my own behavioral health situations that I had going on, which also stemmed in addiction. And also at the very end had taken on a legal aspect of it because that's where my addiction took me. And so when I went through this process, I ended up getting involved. Well, where it kind of started is I got involved in a 12-step organization. And when you do that after a year, they ask you to go to places and kind of share your story with people. So you can share a common lived experience so other people can see success in you as hopefully see it in themselves. And when I would do that, people would come up to me afterwards and they would say, "Hey, how did you do this again? What did you do?" So when I first got involved, it was with the 12-step program, and they ask you to be of service and go to places where people can't go out to meetings. And so I would, and part of it means for those of you who don't know what that is, that means you go to a place where someone can't go to a meeting because they're in a treatment center, they're in a jail, they're in a facility of some sort where they're limited in accessibility. So you go in and you share your experience with them, and so they can see through your experience that it's possible in their world. But it's a lot of like what peer recovery is about is, common lived experience. So I would do that and people would come up to me afterwards and they would ask me more detail. How did you do this? How did you get involved? And so I would go through and just help one person at a time. And literally it was literally just helping one or two people as it happened. And I would help somebody else and then they would tell somebody and somebody else would come to me, and it just organically started to grow like this. And then I started creating tools for ways to engage with recovery, which basically helps you build a framework around your recovery. So it's not this overwhelming mass of you need to change everything, though it breaks it down into little bite-sized pieces that are easier to deal with. And it was basically what I had done for myself, because I kept seeing everybody would have the experience of, oh, your life's a mess. You need to go change. You need to do something different. And people were like, okay, how do you do that? And so I just started showing people what I did. And it started to help more people. And then it started to grow into this thing I created called the Progress Board, which is what I brought into your office when we met. And I started seeing it help other people, and it started to spread into treatment centers, into drug courts, into all these other places, because it was really giving people some tools that empowered them to see the change in themselves. Not that they were doing it for somebody else, but it's that they were finding something they wanted to do, because they could see clear and tangible ways that it would impact their outcomes. And it just organically started to grow. And I got the idea. I was like, well, maybe this is a bigger thing than I'm seeing it as. And so I started to collect a lot of the resources and things we did around that. And then it literally came down to the day when I drove by the facility you were at the time. And I sat outside of that building for, I bet 45 minutes staring at it. I was like, I should go in there. No, they're not going to want to hear this. And then my default setting is to find all the reasons why this won't work. And that's just, a lot of this is just literally giving it a try and going in and just making the effort to walk in and say, hi, Elise, my name's Mark. Nice to meet you. I'm not really sure how this works, and I've never done this before, but this is what I do. And you were super receptive, and you were so nice, and you were so supportive. And those little bits of acknowledgement were really huge to me, you specifically. And so it just started to grow. And it just started, I think a lot of people come into this process, and you see the big organizations or the speakers on a stage, or the people in these large front-facing areas. You're like, yeah, I want to do that. But it doesn't start like that. It starts with these little tiny baby steps, these little engagements with just one individual at a time. And then for me, over time, that spread into just helping one or two people who were on the streets at a time find their little path, or their little few baby steps forward, and then transferred into bigger groups, into larger places. And it's just organically kind of grown like that. And then it's turned into I never in 1,000 years would have thought this would have turned into what it has. To think that this process if you would have come to me when I started this process a few years back and said, this is where my life would be, I would have plain and simply thought you were out of your mind. And, because I was 3 or 4 years ago, I was living homeless on the streets of Albuquerque, and it was full of hopelessness and despair and self-doubt and everything that comes with my behavioral health and my active addiction. It was a lot of hopelessness and despair, and that's been transformed. I love this process because it literally engaging in whatever your recovery process is has this magical transformative ability to take the worst aspects of your life and turn it into the best thing that's ever happened to you if you use it that way. Maybe a long-winded answer to a short question, but
that's what this is about. I like your long-winded answers. They take us somewhere. I don't know where, but somewhere. That's fun. That's the journey. But so you keep talking about this project and where you are today. I know what your project is, but others haven't yet had the opportunity to hear about choices. So give us the elevator speech, or if you want to go on a journey again, tell us what choice and how it helps people.
Okay, so the short version of this is Choice Recovery Path is what we do is we help people build a framework for recovery, which involves really broad life factors, from anything that could be behavioral health or addiction related, to what I'm trying to get people to do is see how they want to do this, not as something they're forced into, that they can have a way to move forward. Basically what we do is we help people develop a roadmap for recovery. So you can break this process down into little bite-sized pieces that are much more attainable and easier to achieve. And then also offer people the resources to be able to follow through. So I initially called this choice because you don't make a choice one day to end up where you are, if at the low points of your life. You make a lot of little small choices. You make a small choice to get high instead of deal with what I'm feeling inside. I made another little choice to not hang out with the most savory people. I made another little choice to put other people's needs ahead of my own needs. I made another little choice to, I'll do it tomorrow. And just, it's a lot of little successions where I ended up where I was. And that's pretty common through most people. But that's also the same way you can get back out of that is, now I make a choice to involve myself in a community of people who have my same goals in mind. I make another choice that I make concerted efforts to work on the things that I personally dealt with, which was anxiety, depression, drug addiction, the underlying things that I was struggling with through counseling and IOP groups and therapy, and just a lot of tangible tools that you can get involved with. My goal is I want people to stack the deck as much as they can in their favor. I don't think you should just pick and choose little things here and there that's convenient. For me personally, I spent 35 years of my life living on the other side of this fence. Mm-hmm. And so to think that all of those behaviors and the ways of being in the world and everything I had was just magically going to go away was really misguided. I needed to get involved in literally everything. I ask people all the time, I'm like, tell me one area of your life that your addiction or your behaviors don't affect. And they're like, well, I guess there isn't one. And so to me, it made sense. If you have problems that affect your whole life, let's try to find solutions that also affect your whole life. So once you've made a choice to want to do something different, let's set you up with the resources and places and things you can do to be able to implement the choice you've been given. Because what I see is that so many times, often people want to change, but they just don't know how to go about implementation of a choice once they've made it. So we help them organize things and break things down into ways that are bite-sized, easy to attain, and then the resources and ways to go through with it on anything in life, be it recovery related, be it education, find jobs, get involved in community, volunteer services, different ways to get involved in every aspect of your life so you can create a really true whole platform to move forward with. And then part of that was physical tools, which were these progress boards we created that help people do things differently and chart out goals and their recovery agenda and everything they can do to start seeing a clear path forward. Because once you can give people the opportunity to see the roadmap that they have, now the way I say it to them is, we're going to develop a map for your recovery. Now, whether you walk down that road or not, that's on you. Everybody's got to do the footwork themselves, but it's a way that they can move forward. And then all the resources statewide, at least in New Mexico statewide for now, which is now starting to spread to more of a national level. We're starting to go into Texas, into Colorado, into Arizona, and Oklahoma, and beyond. Once again, this is not a real way I'm trying to keep up with everything as this organization grows, because if it's a need that you have as an individual, the likelihood it's a need that other people have is really, really high.
Yeah.
So if you're, how are you scratching your own itch? Literally, this is how I scratched my own itch. I did all these things myself. So my logic was, well, if it worked for me, why can't it work for other people? And let's just start helping people do that. And then it's turned into, we also have a software platform that helps people follow along digitally with what they're doing. And it's just organically growing. And literally, I'm just trying to hold on to the reins as this thing takes off. Because now it's starting to spread well beyond, it's finding its own motivation as it's going through.
Yeah, that's great. I love to see that, this small idea that you had that, what I'm going to make a choice. Mm-hmm. Now, if I prepare myself with a healthy choice, then maybe I won't go back to that choice that I would have made had I not had this map in front of me or the tools available to make the right choice.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful name for it because it's true. There are many times I didn't make the right choice, not because I wanted to go down that road, but because it was the only choice I knew. And it was how I had made myself feel better in the past. It is how other people had told me was the way to cope and move through, these mental health conditions that I was dealing with. And they weren't always the best choices. They weren't the best things to do, but I'm a visual person, and that's what sold me, is you presented this in a visual way. And it's a great program. People can get more information. We'll put your contact information as well as the website so that they can look at choice. But even before like this became so big and useful and productive and hopefully nationwide soon enough, how did you talk yourself into being able to say, I'm going to turn this into something for others, not just me? Like, what set that choice in motion? How did you talk yourself into that? Because that's incredible.
So honestly, it kind of happened by people asking, like, because in recovery, you can't change anybody else, but you can be an inspiration through the way you're living your life. And so people would see, hey, wow, Marc, you've been pretty successful at this. How'd you do that? And I was like, at first, to be honest, I was like, I'm not sure. But I was like, how can I not know? I did this. So I started paying a lot of attention to the fundamental pieces that I involved myself with. And then just started showing people, well, hey, I went here, I did this. This is how I organized that, and in that, what really helped me with my own anxiety and depression and everything I was struggling with was, as I started helping others, I started finding my own self-worth.
Yes.
And a huge aspect of this to me personally, everything we do is the biggest benefit to all of these presentations and all these speaking engagements and all this, everything we created, the biggest beneficiary of it is me, because it really reinforces my own process that, I pay a lot of attention to what works, what doesn't work. I think the process of recovery literally relates to just trying to gain a deeper level of consciousness towards everything I do. I have to pay it. I literally wrote things on my hand with a Sharpie for a long time because I just want to remind myself of things. And it's funny how many times a day you'll look at your hand when there's something written there. And it was a little definition of that. But how would I overcome that? That was important because when I first started this, and the first few people who were close to me were like, oh, that's, for one, I was just like, oh, just show people what to do. That's the stupidest idea I've ever had. But when I got into it, I was like, nobody was really doing that. There was, but not in a really simple language that everybody understood. The biggest thing we bring to it is the language you bring to it. How do you talk to people in a language that they understand? And that I've always been really, really good at. So I would talk to people about what I did, and then somebody else would listen in. And I found a level of vulnerability in this that I talk really candidly and transparently about my process, because by doing that, A, it aids the other people that I'm involved with, but B, it's released me of a lot of the shame and the guilt and the self-loathing and all of the things I kept so secret for so long, because that's what really kept me inside of myself. And to learn a different way to do things is just, there's been so many monumental benefits to just the process of talking and getting things out and being willing to go out of my way to help somebody else, and to just see how people, it's great. I love what I do. I absolutely love seeing the light turn on in other people, and they don't have to bump their head against the wall for years and years and years like I did, because somebody just went out of the way and took the time, and part of this is taking the time to literally, I will talk to anyone who will listen. If somebody, I don't care if you're a large organization or you're a homeless guy sitting at the bus stop, you want to do something to make your life better, who am I to ever not sit and talk to somebody about what was done? Because that was freely done for me once. And so I take a lot of energy to just sit and take my experiences and try to show them to other people, and that there's a lot, you can do that regardless of your background or your history. Everybody wants to feel valued and valuable. And when you take the time to just show somebody something that's empathetic and humble and full of gratitude and happiness, the effect it has on both of you is just so profound. And I just love what I do now.
Yeah, it's so true. It's incredible that's how I got started. I share my story little bit by little bit every episode, but that's how it came to me. I fell into peer support just because I needed a job. And it was through helping and engaging other people. I did it through job development, helping people find work, because that's how I found my purpose and my value. I would have hit bottom. Things would have been a lot darker and more difficult for me if I didn't have that opportunity to go outside of myself and work. And so I wanted to translate that value to others, to say, you know, just because there's a criminal history, just because there are gaps in employment, we can make this work and we can find value again because we are putting into our community as well. And so hearing from you also that in sharing and being vulnerable is scary, but once you start to see that benefit, like you said, when you see the light go on, when you see people get emotional or smile because of something you said that resonates with them, it's like, it makes it all worth it. It makes that fear, the potential embarrassment, it makes it all worth it when you see somebody else benefiting from something you've said or done and the way that you can model it to them. And I think that's the beauty of peer support, is we don't do it just for ourselves, and we don't do it just for other people. It's mutually beneficial. I do it because helping you helps me. It gives me encouragement and empowerment because I can empower you, but I can help you get there.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've learned through trial and error that I do want to say that was hugely important is not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody is going to see the vision you have for what you're trying to create. There's times when you may be the only person. You know, I had a lot of people like, oh, that's silly. They don't need this. That's not valuable. And I almost talked to myself out of doing this because I put so much stock in them. Because, you know, if you're going to start something it may only be valuable to a few people, but the few people it's valuable to is enough. You know, that to be able to look past, not everybody's going to get it. If you're doing something that's different and outside of the, you know, their experience, they may not understand, but that doesn't mean give up. That just means, okay, they'll come along later. They may understand it at a different time, you know, because I spent so much effort. Oh, everybody's got to get it. I've got to get everybody's approval. And that's not often the case. The people who got it loved it. And the other people, well, they've come along after time. They finally like, wow, I kind of see it now. And it was important to just hold true to what your heart is telling you and hold on to where your North Star is and what's guiding you in your life. And that's different for everybody.
Very true. And that was one of the things that I used when I was trying to come out of my shell, when I was trying to be more vocal and to share my stories and the things that I knew worked for me. Because we're going to talk about it on another episode, that inner critic. My inner critic, she would tell me, nobody wants to hear it. Nobody's going through what you're going through. It's not going to work for anybody else. And I had to come up with a way to get past that. And so some of the things I would do in being able to get out of my comfort zone is I would say, I am here to impact one person. If that is all that I do in this journey, I will know that I have impacted one person. And I would like to believe that I have impacted more than that, but it kept it from getting overwhelming. Right? I wasn't looking at this big, huge horizon with billions of stars saying, I'm going to count every one, because I would get overwhelmed. That would reactivate the things that I was trying to work through. That would start my anxiety again. That would set off my depression again. And so I had to say, okay, just focus on that one star, that one person. If I can get through with them and connect them to a job, connect them to another peer, get them to find validation in my story and to maybe share with me, then I've accomplished all that I need to do. And so now, you know, I keep telling myself, just one person. That's all it has to be. In a room of 400 people doing a presentation, don't focus on the 400. Say, I'm speaking to reach one person. And if I reach one person, this entire thing was a success. And that helps calm my soul, because even in the beginning, you can kind of catch the eye of someone that, you know, you're touching that one person. And that gives you the motivation and the momentum to keep going, to be able to feed off of that positive energy that people are giving, because you're speaking your truth, which in turn is their truth.
Yeah, totally.
And not shutting yourself down, like you said, but instead saying, okay, this may not go well, but I'm okay with that because it's a learning experience for next time. This presentation may be horrible, but now I know better for next time. Yeah.
I mean, when I started out coming to the facility you were at first, you know, I had these grand illusions. Oh, I'd love to speak to 100 people. And the reality was I was there speaking to only one or two, but what came from that was so beneficial because it helped me hone and sharpen my presentations, my skills. And it really had a lot of learning to do and a lot of growing that I needed to engage with, that now that I've worked through those kinks, you know, organically, I think every experience gets put in your path because it's there for you as an opportunity to grow and learn. And every part of this is that. And another part for me was to, there could be 10 people in the room all on the edge of their seat, but one guy there who was just kind of his arms folded, naysaying things. And I would pay attention to the one guy who was not really engaged, instead of the other people who were on the edge of their seat, who were just excited and ready to be there. And that's where I really shifted my focus. I was focusing into the people who are receptive and engaged and who want what we have to offer.
And that's good. And ideally, every time we go out of our comfort zone, it goes perfectly, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we tell ourselves. Don't worry, it's going to go good. But there are those times that they don't go well. I remember going in and doing a pitch for this great idea that we had for a nonprofit, and reaching out to another local nonprofit and saying, hey, get in on this with us. Let's start. We wanted to do a nonprofit employment agency. Mm-hmm. So there were no over fees. You weren't paying $13 an hour, and then the individual was actually only taking home $11 an hour because you had overhead. So we were coming up with this great idea for a nonprofit, and the person stopped me and said, why would I want to do that? Why does that make sense to me? And it was like, oh yeah, I don't know, but we'll call you or we won't. And it bombed, but it's okay. I can look back on that now, and I use it to say, okay, I already did the bad one. I already did the catastrophically horrible one where I walked out with my tail between my legs. So the rest is uphill from there. And I remember those moments when it goes bad. So how do you come back from times that it doesn't go perfectly?
How do I deal with failure, of which there's been a lot? The biggest thing where I've gotten to now is failure is a fantastic teaching tool. It's not often that the successes in your life are what you truly remember.
True.
A lot of times the failures are what rings so true in my head. But what I look at now, because that happens a lot, where I'll go in and people will be like, oh, this isn't valid. It may not be for them, but what it is for me is an opportunity to grow. What I can take something positive away from any presentation or literally or any situation I do. I am literally in the process of trying to transfer the word problem out of my language, literally, that I don't have problems. I've got opportunities for growth, and I've got learning to do. So if something comes up and I go in and it just bombed, what I'll do when I get out to my car or I get away from the situation is I will go, all right, so what happened? Where did that go? And I'll really kind of step back and analyze, not in a critical sense of myself, but okay, so what did I do that didn't resonate? What did I maybe say here? How can I change this? How can I turn this into an opportunity for growth? And how can I do things differently? Because literally a big insecurity for me is I don't have the PhDs and the master's degrees and what everybody else is, and I'm usually in rooms of people with PhDs and master's degrees and all this. And at first I was super insecure about that because I just felt, you're here listening to me, but the reality is what peer support has is a common lived experience, and that's something that can't be learned. And it is so valuable, and it is so powerful, and it is why people connect. It is the basis of empathy. It is the basis of everything that comes with really, truly being able to connect with people in a real way, So to be able to see, how can I look at how can I sharpen my edge? How am I using this as an opportunity to grow and evolve who I am and what we're doing? Because every failed situation gives you great data on how you can move forward and how you can change, how you can adjust, how you can learn to maybe be a little quicker on your feet, how you can think of situations outside of the box that I maybe wasn't thinking of when I walked in there. And wow, there's a lot of these times those are the times I look back at now as real learning skills, because I can look at them and say, ooh, well, that didn't go very well. How come? Oh, all right, now I know what not to do next time. And so by doing that every single time, it's just gotten better and better and better. And I keep evolving the process and growing and growing and growing to a place that it is now. And I want to continue that process, because if you do that, then in your life, everything is always moving in a more positive direction, because you don't have failures. You just got lessons, and you're in class basically continually.
Right, it's true. And that can translate into so many other areas that we talk about recovery, because I don't believe that recovery is a destination that we reach. I think that it is an unending journey in which people get to come and join our path. And so if we continue to say, I'm going to keep going because this is taking me further along my path, and I'm headed to where I want to go, we can loop around and collect people and bring people along the way to join us on that journey. And by taking this information that we learn, make better choices for different paths and say, last time I went down that path, it didn't turn out real well. So now I know not to go down that path. And instead, let's go this way. Let's prepare a little bit more for the presentation. Let's practice telling our story to someone close who can tell us, where we may be going too slow, going too fast, using words that maybe don't resonate with the general population. But putting ourselves out there and, like you said, collecting that data to say, okay, for next time I need to do this because I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going, and this is just going to get better and better as long as I keep my head up and I keep tracking myself and knowing where I'm going with things. And you just always stay optimistic, as difficult as that can be sometimes. Like you said, find the one good thing that came out of that situation.
Yeah.
And just focusing on that, that's one of my personal mantras is not every day is great, but every day has something great in it. And it's about finding that one thing that we can continue to use as our light on our journey to say, okay, I'm just going to keep following the light. Got a little sketchy there, but there's going to be a tomorrow. There's going to be another presentation, and I'm going to keep going because I'm only going to get better at it. And there are people that need to hear what I have to say. And it's okay for me to believe that there are people out there that need to hear me. And that really helps with the motivation, and that helps empower you to continue sharing your story. So how do you maintain the motivation to do it despite those ups and downs?
Honestly, because part of it is my own process benefits from continual growth. So for me personally, being a student was never my forte. I was never, I barely graduated high school. I'll just be honest. I was never a student. I don't have a lot of the traditional learning skills, but what I do love now is the digital age has brought options for learning that are very profound. I listen to a lot of books now as I drive around. There's tons of educational materials you can find online for anything you're trying to do. So the process of being an eternal learner, to me, I've really grown to love. So what keeps me going is I love that I'm always trying to raise my bar. I'm always trying to raise my own game to see, well, how can I grow and see things differently, and how can I broaden my horizons, and how can I learn the things that I don't know now? I mean, there's been so many monumental, and I mean 50,000 pound gorilla monumental size learning curves to starting an organization, how to deal with HIPAA, how to deal with, government contracts, how to deal with just these broad things I had no clue how to do. But at the end of the day, it's just, I need to be able to figure it out. But what keeps me going is when I see it really make an impact on other people's lives. Literally, I remember somebody that I met at a detention center in Western New Mexico. And he was one of the people that when we first came in, had resided to the fact that he was going to prison and that life was just going a direction he didn't care. And he didn't want anything, and he just sat in the corner with his arms folded, and everything was bad. And I understand, because basically the judges and the people around him had said, you're going to prison, and that's taken effect on your life. But over a couple months of going there, he went through this process, and he started to get more engaged, and he started to see different possibilities, and he started to see in a life that he didn't think was possible yet for him, and to go through. And then basically he went through the sentencing process, and he took a lot of the stuff that I'd given him, and he had gotten sentenced instead of to prison to a one-time chance for recovery. And he went into a treatment facility, and he got out. And he came running up to me after he came back, because I showed up to do a presentation, and he came running up to me and said, "Hey dude, I just got back from sentencing. Guess what?" And I'm like, "What happened?" I was even a little, thinking he was going to get prison. He's like, I get to go to treatment. I get to go into recovery. And he got a one-time shot at it. And that was really impactful. But what he said after that was transformative to me. He said, "You know what? I think I'm going to get to be a dad, because his girlfriend was 9 months pregnant with his daughter. Fast forward a little further, he went through this treatment facility in the area he was in, and he got out, and I actually saw him on the streets holding a little 12-month-old girl, and literally brought tears to my eyes. I don't even know what her name is now, but he's out being a dad. He's out being engaged in her life. And why do I do this? Because I think about that little girl who's now got a dad in her life, and not somebody who sends letters from prison every couple years occasionally. And that is transformative, So now I think about how could I possibly give up on that little girl? I'm not saying he did all the work. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is me, but we all have an amazing something we can bring to the table. Whatever that is for any individual is unique to that person. But what you leave on this life when you leave it is the impact you have on others. And I found a way that I think I can have a positive influence on other people's lives. And how could I possibly give up on that? What keeps me going is just that. And it's, for the first time in my life, helped me find self-worth and value in myself. And it just feels great. I won't lie. There's part of it that just feels amazing.
It does. And tell me honestly and candidly, had you not had the life experiences that you did, the downs more than the ups, do you honestly think that you would have the same feeling in being able to do the work that you do?
Absolutely not. I love one thing about recovery, and that it's got this transformational ability to turn the absolute worst parts of your life into the best things that ever happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
To go through, and all of those bumps in the road, all of those times I banged my head off the wall, all became lessons that I learned that I now use in a different direction. And I've now learned to leverage into my own recovery and into the ability to be able to help people. But if I wouldn't have gone through all of those processes, because I talk to people all the time that, I wasted so much time. That they kind of beat themselves up over their own process. But I'm like, you didn't. Those were all lessons you've learned. So now, how can you take those as not mistakes, but those are fantastic teaching tools on a direction you want to go in life. I remember walking into a 12-step meeting like 3 weeks ago when I was in Texas, and an 84-year-old man showed up in there, and he had 1 week in recovery. At 84 years old, it's never too late. It's never beyond your grasp. It's never something that anyone can achieve. Everybody's opportunity is right in front of them when you're ready to want to make a choice to take it.
And jumping back into it, you had mentioned before the insecurities of not having a PhD, of not having a master's, and speaking to these people who are listening to you. And you said that, you can go to school and you can read the books and you can write the papers and get those degrees. But by having that experience, you bring something that nobody else can bring. And so it's the autonomy, like our independence of our story is our story. But then it takes great skill to translate that to others and to say, I may not have the credentials that you have, but you don't have the experience I have. And so let's put that together. And that's what makes it powerful, is when we can come together as a group and you can bring your skills and insights. I don't know what it's like to be a man. Mm-hmm. I can come together with you and we can bring in two varying perspectives, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's bringing in that different experience and valuing that instead of excluding people because of what we think or don't think that they have. And so being able to leverage that is making you comfortable, or to make you able to step, even if it's just a little bit outside of that comfort zone, by saying, I have something valuable to say. I may not know what it is right now, but I'm going to keep talking until something comes out that's of value. Bringing what we can to where we are is the power that we hold, not necessarily the experience or the credential or A, B, C, or D. But, just being there is sometimes the biggest opportunity, the biggest struggle. And I always laugh and say, I used to feel bad, like I didn't have a seat at the table. So I'd stand against the wall. Nowadays, I bring my own chair. So if they don't give me a seat at the table, I can pull up my chair to the table. And so think of me with my little camping chair, right? It's pink. So, but that helped me by saying,
fantastic.
Yeah, I have the power in this. I don't have to be invited and given a platform to speak, But if I feel like there's something valuable for me to say, I owe it to myself, and I owe it to those who may need to hear what I have to say. And that helps me warm up a little bit to the process.
You know, you're giving a voice from your experience to people who may not be able to articulate or speak what they're feeling. You know, peer support is fantastic in that capacity, because it's a group of people who get together, who kind of crowdsource a different way of living, who can kind of help each other literally give a voice to those who don't have it yet, and can find a way forward, because you know the unique, intimate details of their experience and their fears and their excitements and everything that comes with the experience, because you both have shared that common lived experience. And when you can find that, the power that comes from working as a tribe or working as a group of people, humans are hugely successful because we work together. And to be able to really understand what it's like for someone else, you can't learn that in a classroom. You can't learn that at school. I'm not saying everything that an education is not valuable by any means, but that common lived experience is so profound, because it connects you on a very deep level with people that you can't connect with sometimes without. And to use any single person that comes into this process can take whatever their experience has been. We're not as all, independent or unique as we think. Let me put it this way. When I first was starting to share my story a lot, part of my story was being molested when I was a kid. And I was talking with somebody beforehand who wouldn't really say it, but he kind of alluded to that same experience happened. And I was like, you know what? Heck with it. I'm going to be open about what happened to me, because maybe it'll help him. And I went into the story and I started talking about that period of my life, and his head popped up and looked like, wow, you. And then about 10 other heads did too. That so many people were like, well, oh, you too? And, the power to realize that we're not alone, and that other people have gone through this, and that we all can heal together is really profound. Start taking whatever your experience was, no matter where you are in your life, that your experience is valuable and you are valuable. And to be able to move into a place where you can start taking that and helping other people see it is really super important.
And then the beauty is, one day we're going to look up and we're going to be able to look back to where we started and say, wow, my comfort zone was this teeny tiny little lifesaver. I was in this little tiny circle of comfort. And now my comfort zone has expanded so much. My comfort zone, I can't even see the ends of where my comfort zone lies, because I've grown, because I'm comfortable with more things, right? Before, being in my comfort zone was being home, was isolating, was self-medicating in the ways that I knew how. Not talking about it, not dealing with it, handling it how I knew, right?
Absolutely.
You stay home for 3 days, call off work, ditch school, don't talk to friends, because that's how you get better. But that was where I was. Now my comfort zone is so big and vast. I know that I can go out and I can do yoga with a new group of people that I've never met before, because I enjoy it and it feeds my soul. I could never do that before. I didn't like meeting new people or doing things that were as vulnerable as trying to touch your toes in front of other people. I could never have spoken to large groups. Now I do webinars of 1,500 people often, frequently. I travel across the country and get to speak. That's because my comfort zone has expanded further than I ever thought it could, because of those little baby steps and those people that come along the way, and seeing the positivity of that impact. Little by little pushes out the boundaries of my comfort zone. Piece by piece. It's not overnight. It's not something that we can quantify in years, of saying in 5 years you'll be out of your comfort zone and happy with it. But it's saying, each day that passes and each opportunity you have, you're going to step hopefully a little bit out, and that's going to make you grow. And so just giving yourself those opportunities. If you never try, how are you going to know? You're never going to give yourself the opportunity to step out. Just put your toes out of your comfort zone a little bit and wait and see. It may not go perfect, but what can you take from that? Like you said, it's a learning opportunity. We have to keep pushing ourselves to be greater for ourselves, but also for those that we potentially could impact. Because the day you came into my office and asked to do a presentation, I had no idea who you were. You were just a guy walking in asking for 15 minutes that I didn't have. But in having that conversation that you and I did, and validating each other's experience and finding how it transferred amongst us. Oh yeah, me too. We were able to create a friendship. We were able to motivate each other unintentionally by saying, okay, I'll listen to you and I'll give you that time of day. And that helped you for the next time. And so those little baby steps that before you know it, you look back and you're like, holy cow, I don't know how I got here, but I did. And it's incredible. And I want to show other people that it can be done.
Absolutely. I mean, the things I talk about now with large groups, if you would have come to me 4 or 5 years ago and said, this is what I would talk about with groups, I would have thought you were insane.
Right?
No way would I ever speak about that to people. But the more I've done that, the more I put myself out there, the more it has personally for me has freed me from my guilt and anxiety and depression around those subjects, because they don't have that hold on me that they used to, because I don't keep them inside and I don't keep them secret. And to be able to, and now the level of comfort I've gotten with this, the first time you talk to a group, you're like, oh my gosh, now I don't even think twice about it. I think it's great.
Right.
Now I love it. I love feeding off the group energy of people in a room. I love the back and forth, the experience, and you get better and better at it. And a lot of that is just through getting to the process where you're like, all right, I can do this. And sometimes, reminding myself why I'm here. I'm here to give and to help. I'm not here to sound pretty. I'm here to help people find a different way to live their life. And that's to me when I stopped having so much anxiety around it. There's a lot of little tools around anxiety and breathing and just little things like how I frame my story to things. I started using this one tool with clients that, I was like, who has anxiety? And every hand in the room will go up. I'm like, okay, so what's your body feel like when you're anxious? And they'll be like, oh, my palms get sweaty, my face gets flushed, my armpits get sweaty, my heart flutters, all that. And I'm like, okay, so how do you feel when you're excited? And they're like, oh, well, exactly the same way. And I'm like, okay. And I kind of stole this from somebody that I heard speaking online was, the story I connect to my anxiety means so much, because now I started telling myself that I'm excited. When I heard somebody talk about this online, I was like, wow, that's so profound, as opposed to saying I'm nervous or I'm anxious or whatever. Little things like that. But it came with the practice of the process, being willing to put myself out there and move through it.
Definitely. And I also learned that I couldn't put these expectations on myself that I didn't expect to meet. So I couldn't say, you're going to walk into this room of 600 people and you are going to amaze them all. And they're all going to be incredibly influenced by you. And you're going to impact 600 lives today. And you're not going to stumble on your words. And you're going to get every point across within the time limit. And you're never going to hiccup. And you're not going to sneeze during a presentation. And setting those expectations for myself would create the anxiety of, I have to do this perfect. I have to look perfect, sound perfect, and pretend that I was born public speaking. Once I brought down those expectations of you're human, and the more human you are, the more people relate. If they see you as this perfectionist in the way that you speak and talk, they're not going to relate with you because they may not feel that. They may have insecurities associated with it. So I have tripped. I've tripped while presenting. I have tripped up my words while presenting. I have said the complete wrong thing. I have called people by the wrong name. I have gone off on tangents that don't make sense. It makes me relatable to people. Somebody in the audience is going like, she came back from that one. I don't know how, but she did. Maybe I can too.
She's just like me. Oh yeah, I've literally tripped flat on my face in the middle of presentation. How you react to those little hiccups. Can you make it something that's a learning experience? It's funny that, and also all those things are part of how you learn to be a little quick on your feet when you're doing things, and how you can, step outside your comfort zone. And that happens on a regular basis to me.
I've never actually had anybody come back and say, oh, your presentation was amazing, except you said this word wrong. Oh, you totally would have impacted my life if only you hadn't been wearing purple. All of these little things that I stress myself out about, I've never had anybody actually come up and say it to me. They have instead, like you said, focused on the optimistic, the one nugget that they took. I appreciate how you talked about having to be silent all these years, because that's how I feel or felt. And it's like, that wasn't the focus of my presentation. I was worried about wearing purple, but you got something out of this that will truly impact your life. And so letting those expectations go of it doesn't have to be perfect every time. And people may not find value if it is. And so just go out there with the full human approach and say, this is who I am. This is my camping chair that I bring with me in case you don't give me a seat at the table. And I'm just going to say it like it is and show you who I am and hope that you can find value in that.
Totally. Because there's been so many times when I'm like, I'm going to say this really profound thing. And the people will come up to me afterwards. It wasn't that at all. It was something I'm like, really? That's what you resonated with? because the way you may connect with people is so unknown, and it's so just different than what you may be expecting, and the person that's usually best about beating myself up about, I'm usually best at beating myself up about these things that, right. Oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that. There's things that people are like, oh, I didn't even notice that. I didn't even think about that, But the things that people do resonate with, I couldn't pick them if I tried.
Right.
Every single time somebody comes up and they're like, because I'll ask, I love feedback. They're like, hey, so what did you like? What did you not like? And people are like, oh, I like this, I didn't like that. And I was like, I don't even remember saying that. That's what you loved? And they're just, there's just these, everybody resonates with something that's very different than what you see. So I just take the perception that, I'm just gonna be the best version of me I can be today. And that's not always good. Sometimes you're gonna have bad days, but that's all right. That's part of the process. But overall, I love my days compared to any other time in my life to date. I really do.
Right. Isn't this the best? Like, I don't know how I got so blessed to be here doing this work and working with the people like you that I come across every day, but I do. And I count that as my blessings, that whatever terrible things I went through, whatever difficult things, the people that I lost in my life, it all brought me here. And I feel like this is where I was supposed to be. So I would never go back and change those things.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish them on other people, but I wouldn't change them for me, because look what I get to do. I get to travel, and I get to meet people, and I get to share experiences and stories that we would never get from each other in any other profession.
Totally. And every single one of those experiences that any of us have walked through were absolutely necessary to bring us to today and to bring us to this moment in time. And, is it going to change and get better? Yeah, I hope so. But I wouldn't trade a single one of them, because they all brought me here. And I, for the first time in my life, love here. I love where I'm at. There's days I literally drive away from some presentations or facilities or talking with people, and I am literally giddy, kind of smiling, laughing, like that's so much fun and it's so great. And I just had never experienced that in life. I'd never experienced, like, I wake up today so, like, almost cliche optimistic and hopeful, because, I just don't know what's going to come of today, but chances are it might be a pretty good thing, if I stay true to my North Star and what I truly believe in, and that I'm trying to help people find their way. A lot of people, I think, get into the process, oh, I need to make this all money, 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 money. Here's the reality of that to me, is that if you are doing real good, money will happen as a byproduct. Mm-hmm. It just will. If you're instilling the change you want to instill into the world, money will happen as a byproduct. But what's important is that you're actually instilling the change in the world that you want to see, whatever that is. And that's hugely impactful to me in my own process. So now I connect, I look at our impact on, did people create a life that they wanted? Mm-hmm. And if they did, then we're a success. It has zero to do with anything outside of, well, I measure our success by the success of others.
Right.
And if they find theirs, cool. We're doing what we're supposed to do. And that's important to me.
Yeah. When we're fixing, let's say, a house, mm-hmm. we don't at the end look at our beautifully created house and say, I want to thank the hardware store. Mm-hmm. It's all because of them. No, they were part of the story. The hardware store had the tools you needed. You also don't say, thank you, Hammer. This is all because of you. Only you, Hammer, made this house beautiful. No, the hammer helped, but a lot of it was on me. I put in the power. I went to the hardware store. I picked up the hammer. I built it, and I did it. So it's me and all of those other factors that made this what it is. But without one or the other, it wouldn't have happened. And so making sure that we focus on, yes, the hardware store was helpful. Yes, the recovery program was helpful. Yes, the tools that I used to get to where I am was extremely helpful. But it was me. I had to pick up those tools. I had to walk in the door of that recovery center. I had to ask for help. And if that wasn't happening, then we wouldn't be where we are today. And that is uncomfortable. And it's okay to be uncomfortable, because in discomfort is when we grow and change. Mm-hmm. And always remembering that just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You know better. You know when it's a good place or a bad place to be.
I firmly agree that, a lot of this is, it's just the unknown. I love, like I sit now and look back. I'll relate it to this way. you want a crystal ball in your life? Do you want to see where you're going? I look back at my first day in recovery and now compare, if for anybody who's listening to this, compare your first day in this process to today. Mm-hmm. I bet your life has gone pretty much in one direction, which is probably better and better and better. It wasn't always perfect. There may be bumps in the road. There's been process. But overall, if you continue to engage in the process you want, your life has gotten better and better and better and better. Now, how do you know what the future has to bring? Makes sense to me that if you're doing what's been going better and better and better, if you wanted to extend that line out into the future and you're going to continue doing what's been working, it's going to continue to get better and better and better and better and better. So I know that our organization is going to evolve. I plan on it. I plan on things changing. I plan on things evolving. I plan on, the process of evolution and growth is just that. It's change. And it's being open to know that, things are going to evolve and change. And I really hope for that, just in the time since I've known you.
It has. That process for both of us has changed exponentially. We've both stepped up and grown in ways that we never guessed or expected. We expected to stay where we were. Hasn't happened. So again, you look back and you realize things change when you take those steps forward. And I am so encouraged and excited to see where you go from here, to see what happens with Choice, the programs, the people that you impact, to hear about your travels all over this beautiful country. And just in wrapping this up, I want to thank you for, first off, taking the time to be here. You're very busy. I probably should run into you in airports more often than we see each other in the community because we're back and forth all over. Mm-hmm. But, for making yourself available and just sharing this wisdom that you've gained through your experience along the way and being able to share that with others and going outside of your comfort zone to teach other people that it's okay to be where you are as long as you continue to grow and evolve in that process. So I ask that you continue to keep me and us in the loop of all of the amazing things that you do, the people you come in contact with, and just keep pushing on because it's exciting to see that upward trajectory of yours.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. I love watching I love being on the sidelines and watching your process grow and grow and grow. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys.
I'm so thankful to the individuals who have come forward and been interviewed for the Star Center podcast. It's so important for individuals to be heard and to hear each other in regards to peer support and mental health. If you or someone you know needs assistance, please reach out to the following numbers. The SAMHSA National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. The NAMI National Helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI or at info@nami.org. And of course, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Please, again, feel free to reach out to us with further information, but also utilize these national helplines for any issues that you may be experiencing, any questions that you may have, or just for an opportunity to talk with someone close. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.